So today in this video I want to try and install Hall effect sticks into a PlayStation 2 controller. In this case we are working with the Model H controller. We have the already replaced flex PCB and ribbon cable right here. I basically needed some other parts to get this controller fully up and running, but in this case we are going to use this board for a little experiment, as I'm not really sure if there are many videos out there or even tutorials on how to do this. I mean, I've never done this before. I didn't even plan on doing a Hall effect stick install into a PlayStation 2 controller, but on the previous video I made about installing Hall effect sticks into a original Xbox controller, which you can see the video right here, I actually got a couple of comments of people interested in a PlayStation 2 Hall effect stick install. We have one comment right here, so thank you to Carlos for leaving that comment, as well as another comment right here. So also thanks to Maquinho Play, I hope I said that correctly. It could definitely be interesting to try that. I mean, the reason I never even thought about doing that is because on the PlayStation 2 controller, unlike the later versions of the PlayStation controller, these sticks are actually very stable and there's never really anything wrong with it, unless maybe something got spilled into the controller or maybe it got really well used, that maybe mechanically it's just not working properly. But honestly, I've never really found any issues with the analog sticks. I mean, they're really smooth, they always work properly, and I'm pretty sure they also self-calibrate if maybe there is some minor stick drift going on into a controller like this. If you move the stick around a bit, then it will just self-center and you will not have anything to do with stick drift unlike modern controllers. But nevertheless, it could still be interesting to install these Hall effect sticks. So before we are going to do that, I want to show you the Xbox original guide which is out there. I think it was made by a Redditor. I will make sure to leave a link in the description. This is not the original guide, I think. I just copied it over into a Word document so I can have it offline. But basically this is for the original Xbox. You see the joystick pin out, which is on the bottom of the PCB. And yeah, we basically have a 5-volt, a signal in the middle, and then a ground. The most important thing here is the 5-volt and the ground, which we need to work with. We will be working with these Hall effect sticks again. So these ones are made for the Xbox 360. As you see them right here, so with one orange potentiometer and one black one. So these ones are basically ready to install in the 360 controller, which means that if we want to install them into a PlayStation 2 controller, we will need to make a little bit of a modification maybe. It kind of depends on how the voltage and ground is located in this controller. So in this case, on the Gen 4 Hall effect sticks, the orange potentiometer from left to right has a ground, then a signal and the 5-volt. But on the black potentiometer, it will be reversed. So we have the 5-volt here and then the ground on the right side. It's important that we install the stick properly and don't have the 5-volt and the ground mixed up on the motherboard, since that in the worst case scenario could break the whole controller or at least cause some kind of damage. Yeah, the first step that we need to do is we will need to plug in 5-volt power into the PlayStation 2 controller we are working with here. And I will do that with a little adapter I have. So I will basically connect it to my computer just to give it some power. So this basically, the PlayStation 2 cable goes in here, then we have USB on this side, which will give us the 5-volt we need. So I will plug that into the PC, and then with a multimeter we can determine where the 5-volt is and where the ground is located on the analog sticks. Okay, so I have the controller plugged in. Okay, so we should have the multimeter in the screen at this point. And what we want to do is we want to have the black probe on any of the grounds, which these legs are perfect for that in this case. And then we want to probe these potentiometers, and we will start right here on the right side of the right analog stick. And we get 0 volts, which would implicate that here we have the ground connection of the controller. Then we have the signal in the middle, which is around 2 volts, and it should be similar on the rest of the potentiometers. Here is the bottom pin, which will show 4.2 volts. And that should be the 5-volt line. It's maybe a little bit lower than 5 volts. I'm not sure if that's going to be an issue. I guess we will find that out. And then we hope to have a similar configuration right here. So we start with the ground in the middle around 2 volts. Then on the left side Yeah, we have that 4.2 volts again. So that's perfect. Same thing right here. We have the ground, 2 volts, 4.2, and yeah, here it should be the same. The ground right here, around 2 volts. A little bit lower, maybe I'm moving the analog stick around a little bit. There we go. And then 4.2. So that gives us a little idea of the layout. And yeah, I've basically written it down right here. So this is supposed to be the motherboard for the Model H controller. And yeah, so we have ground, then the 5 volts, let's say, on the left side. If you compare that to well, how the Hall effect stick is supposed to work, then we see that the orange potentiometer is the one that directly is compatible with the motherboard. So if we compare that to the orange potentiometer, then this is the one that should be fully compatible with this PlayStation 2 controller, which means that it is pretty similar to the original Xbox layout. So the same rules do apply in this instance. So I'm purely talking about this revision of the PlayStation 2 controller. I do know that, for example, here we have a Model A controller, I think a later revision. So if you lay the Model H controller and the Model A controller, if you lay them together, you can see that the analog sticks are positioned a little bit differently. So here is the L3 R3 button, these 4 pins right here, which in this case are located on the left side. On the other end of the PCB, it's located on the right side, and on the Model H controller, they are both facing upwards, which means that what I measured on here is not necessarily going to be the case on this controller. So if you are interested in doing this install, then I would recommend that you grab your multimeter, put it into DC voltage, and just measure each of these analog pins and determine that way where the ground is and where the 5 volt is. Since you really do not want to just go ahead and guess what it might be or just blindly copy this video. That's is not what I would recommend. Just do a little bit of due diligence and make sure that you know where the 5 volt and ground is located, and you know where the 5 volt and ground on this Hall effect stick is located, so you do not make unnecessary mistakes right there. Okay, in this case we are working with the Model H controller, and yeah, it happens to be similar to the original Xbox PCB layout in terms of where the 5 volt and ground is. So just for the sake of a bit of simplicity, I will go ahead and just take these two Hall effect sticks and basically make them like this, so that we only have the orange potentiometers on one Hall effect stick, so it will be a direct swap in, and there's no need for modifications on the motherboard. If you want a bit more in-depth explanation on what modifications are needed, check out the video I made about the original Xbox controller with Hall effect sticks installed. It will go a bit more in depth on that. And maybe also interesting, if it happens to be that on different revision PlayStation controllers the 5 volt and ground is reversed, then maybe you can even directly swap in this Hall effect stick. I'm not too sure about that. Maybe it will be featured in a future video. Difficult. But for now, we will keep it a little bit simple since it's way too hot to go into in-depth explanation right now. And of course, I'm curious if this even works in the first place. So we will directly move on, swapping the orange potentiometer from this end onto right here. So I have a pair of pliers right here, and we should gently be able to take it off. Just a little bit of wiggle should be enough to actually get this out of here. There we go. And here is the magnet, of course, inside, which of course detects the movements. So I will grab a X-Acto knife. Basically slide it under here. Basically get this out, hopefully. In one piece, since the middle part is actually loose, and it can actually be the case if you get this out that the middle part will separate from the outer part of this little piece right here. But you can just put that together, no problem. But if you are a bit too harsh with the removal of the potentiometer, then that can go wrong sometimes. So now we will remove the black potentiometer from right here. And it's basically the same process. It's also handy that since this is magnetic, that it will actually stick to the X-Acto knife right here, so it also doesn't get lost all over the workplace. And yeah, now I will grab a pair of tweezers just to make my life a little easier. And we should be able to line this up. I forgot that this is magnetic, so I will grab a pair of ceramic tweezers, since those are not magnetic, should make life a little easier. We should be able to align this a little bit. Ooh, I just don't want to use my hand since that is not going to be too accurate. If we align it, then we should be able to press it down. And if you look at it from the front, we want to center it as much as possible. Make sure that it is nice and straight, like that. And then we can just pop all the cover like that, and yeah, that's it. So yeah, really simple in this case. So that's the Hall effect sticks prepped at least. So yeah, the next thing we need to do is to remove the sticks from the Model H controller. And like I said, there's nothing wrong with the sticks, so I would just keep them around. Or of course, if this half stick install goes wrong, we should be able to just reinstall them, no problem. So alright, the old analog sticks are removed right now. And it should be ready to install these newer Hall effect sticks. The first thing we need to do, however, is to make sure that these legs are completely straightened out. And we should be able to do that by hand, actually. You can also use some kind of dental pick or tweezer or something. Don't need to use a lot of force, just make sure that they all align nicely with the pin out of the motherboard. And yeah, this is basically a direct fit, so really nice, actually. So we'll start with one stick at a time, since these do fall out really nice. Really nicely. Oh yeah, they kind of do. But yeah, they fall out very easily. So I think I will just do the same thing that the manufacturers did and just give these legs a bit of a twist. So that's they cannot fall out. So yeah, now they should actually stay into place. Also use a little bit of flux, not really needed to be fair if you are installing these sticks. But it does help a bit with making nice solder joints. So just use a little bit, then we can just reinstall them. Soldering iron is at 330 Celsius, by the way. I would not really recommend very high soldering temperatures for this motherboard. It's a single layer motherboard, so it's not necessary to have a really high temperature in the 400 Celsius. Just 330 Celsius should do perfectly fine. So that is one stick installed. So now I will just do the other one. Same process, obviously. Alright, so that is the last Hall effect stick installed. And here's the end result, actually. So if we look at it from this direction, also from this direction, we can see that the analog stick is actually fully straight with the motherboard. So a pretty nice install, I think. Sticks also just feel fine. So I'm not even sure if I have a Model H shell where I can put this in. But yeah, I will put the controller together into a reasonable state, and I think it might be interesting to actually just test it on the PlayStation 2 directly and just see what happens. So I did actually end up finding a shell for my another Model H motherboard, which I haven't really got the time to repair, so I just temporarily stole the shell from that one. So here's the PCB with the Holodeck sticks installed, as you can see right there. And there's only one thing to do, and that is to turn on the PlayStation and see what happens. PlayStation is on. Okay, the sound was a little bit loud, so I just disconnected the audio. I've not plugged it in yet. That's kind of where I want to go. So here's just the extension. Here is the PlayStation 2 controller. So 3, 2, and 1. And the controller is in. Of course, keep in mind that we do not actually have the analog turned on. And so far, so good, I think. So yeah, the analog stick, the light actually comes on. I do not see any weird behavior from the stick so far. So I think we should just go into the menu and, I don't know, free skate or something. Controller feels a little bit sketchy in the shell so far, but it's not fully back together, so there may be a little bit of a alignment issue, which prevents the controller from working properly. But yeah, so far it does actually go to these sections, but it does not register the right input for some reason. And on the D-pad it does, so that is very interesting. Not sure why, this one does not do anything, but I don't think it ever does. Unfortunately on the PC I do not really have a program where you can check the sticks a bit more properly. So I will just need to deal with it in-game. And this may just be a little bit of a calibration issue, but the up and down does seem to work, so that's kind of positive. Of course, I did actually start up ProScaler 2, which is maybe not very smart since we cannot actually test the right analog stick on this, but I guess I am more interested in if the left analog stick is going to work or if it's going to behave a little bit strange. Okay, so let's just try and move around a little bit. And yeah, it does not want to go left for some reason. I'm not sure why. Since according to the pinout, it should be completely similar. So it's interesting that the up and down does seem to work. Define this down and yeah, but the right does seem to work. So we have up, down, and right. Left not working. I do think the movements of the directions that work are pretty accurate actually. So it has a pretty good registration of when I turn the analog stick right. So yeah, that is a pretty good response at least. So I guess even with the 4.2 volts that is in the controller, it does actually work pretty well. So what I would like to test next is I just want to check the voltage actually on the analog sticks or on the Hall effect sticks. So here we still have the ground. Okay, the signal is actually quite a bit lower. It says 1.68 volts. We are testing the right analog stick right now. Ah, okay, that is very interesting. It barely has any voltage in there. Oh wait, yeah, it's 3.2, so it's definitely lower than what the regular analog stick of the PlayStation 2 controller has. What about this one? So we have the ground again. Yeah, definitely lower at 1.6, the signal. And the 5-volt line is 3.2 volts. Okay, now the left analog stick. Ground 1.6, also 3.2. And I think we are going to get the same results right here. Yeah. Okay, so that is actually very interesting. Not sure why there is a difference there. So it's basically partially working. And if I check my soldering work, I think it's not really the soldering. think that actually looks acceptable, and of course the right direction is working. So I'm not sure what's going on there, but what I will do is I will start up a different Tony Hawk game, Tony Hawk 4, since we can actually utilize both the analog sticks and see what results we get on that game. Alright, so we are back on Pro Skater 4 and we are just going to go into Free Skate real quick. And yeah, I'm curious if we have a different behavior on the right analog stick or if we are going to experience similar issues. Okay, that is very interesting. So here we are on a PlayStation 2 game and here we have a fully working left and right analog stick. Okay, now I am actually confused. I have no idea why there is a difference in the PlayStation 1 game and the PlayStation 2 game, but yeah, here it is working actually very fine. So I feel like the left and right are equally responsive to my inputs. So and if we go into a manual, for example, yeah, you can definitely, it actually works very well. Okay, now what about the camera for the right analog stick? Okay, this is left, basically works. Right also works. Then we have up and down, both work perfectly fine. But that is fascinating. I mean, I have no idea why there would be a difference between the PlayStation 1 and PlayStation 2. Yeah, this is actually working very well. I think I might actually like them more than the original analog stick. It does feel, although this is not even calibrated, I have no idea how the controller is actually oriented, if it is perfectly centered or maybe a little bit off. But yeah, this feels really smoothly, and yeah, I'm actually happy to use this with a Tony Hawk game. Normally, I like to use the D-pad more since it's more accurate, but this is surprisingly well to work with actually. But I just want to quickly check if we have the same readings. Well, it's a little bit high on this one, I think. So we now are at 1.7. And here we are at 3.28. Should be similar enough, to be fair. Yeah. Okay, 1.48. So that seems a lot lower, actually. It's, yeah, this is 1.78. And here on the middle pin, we have 1.42. Actually, a lot lower, surprisingly enough. Ooh. Um, yeah, this is still 3.2 volts. Let me go to the other side. Should have ground right here. So you have 1.58. Okay. Still 3.2. Ground 1.534 and 0.28. Okay. So it's definitely a little bit different. Not sure what causes it. Yeah, I want to do one last thing, I think. I also have Tony Hawk Pro Skater, so the original Tony Hawk. So I would like to try that game and see what happens with the analog sticks. Okay, now I am officially confused. So yeah, this is now also working perfectly fine on this, on a PlayStation 1 game. So yeah, I doubt, oh, there's no manuals in this game. So I doubt that it has anything to do with PlayStation 1 versus PlayStation 2 games. That would also not really make sense, I think. What I do think may have happened is what I kind of started thinking about as I was starting up this game is sometimes when the PlayStation is already on and you plug in a controller, it may be that the rumble motors are not working when you first just plug in the controller. So in this case, we do not have rumble motors, but sometimes you need to plug in or unplug the controller and then re-plug it in, and then the rumble starts working. And yeah, for some reason, the rumble and analog sticks are actually somewhat correlated to each other, so they kind of affect each other. Not sure how. So I'm kind of wondering if that was happening when we were testing PostGrid 2. That maybe something was happening that the rumble motors were maybe not registering, and that also caused some impact on the analog sticks, where in this case the left direction was not being registered for some reason. But yeah, this is also working perfectly fine, which of course is good news. It means that the installation actually went perfectly fine. And yeah, we did a good job in that regard. And of course that the 360 Hall effect sticks can actually be used for install into a PlayStation 2 controller, in this case the Model H controller. And like I said earlier, if you have a different revision, there's quite a lot of variations, then yeah, definitely measure the pins first before you attempt any install of Hall effect sticks. So for the last time, I will go back to Postgraded 2, and yeah, I will just retest that again, since that will give a bit of a final answer as to what is going on this game as well, since that kind of confirms that maybe if I would have just unplugged the controller and plugged it back in, it would have probably started working again, since now we have tested a few other games and no problems to be found. Alright, so we are in a free skate, and yeah, let's test it. 3, 2, 1, and yeah, it is working again. And this time also on Postgraded 2, so definitely a issue, I think, with something not being registered properly, which caused me to think that maybe we had some kind of issue with PlayStation 1 or PlayStation 2 games. But yeah, in the end, if I just would have unplugged the controller, plugged it back in, it would have been perfectly fine. But yeah, we now have a completely working Hall-effect stick into a PlayStation 2 controller. Actually, pretty good doable, at least if you have some soldering experience. So yeah, definitely happy that even the 360 Hall-effect sticks also work, basically plug and play into the PlayStation 2 controllers as well. I mean, I can imagine that that would work fine in the PlayStation 1 controller as well. There's not too many differences between the two controllers. They're pretty similar. At least the later version PlayStation 1 controller, which I think even uses similar analog sticks. So I think you should be able to even perform Hall effect sticks into there as well. So that's pretty cool. So I think we have played enough right here. So yeah, I think that marks the end of this video, where we have successfully installed Hall effect sticks into the Model H controller. So here's the end result of that. So I'm really happy with that, and I will probably keep this around and just test it a bit more, see if anything bad may happen with it. I'm not really expecting too many problems. I mean, I think with Hall effect sticks, in any controller where I have installed them, I've never experienced any issues after I have installed them. So I'm pretty hopeful that these will last a long time. Not sure if they would have outlived the original analog sticks. I mean, these are really amazing analog sticks, and they absolutely stand the test of time for sure. So definitely not a necessity, but yeah, if you like Hall effect sticks and you have a bit of soldering experience, definitely a doable project for sure. Especially if you have a Model H controller like this, where similar to the original Xbox controller, you can swap the potentiometers and then you can directly just install them. If you have a different revision, again, I just want to emphasize that it's maybe not going to be a direct swap in, and maybe different modifications are needed if you are working with a different motherboard. So yeah, maybe I need to make a part 2 to this. But yeah, this first install was definitely a success. So if you're still sticking around to the end of the video, then I want to thank you for watching. I hope it was interesting. If it was, you can leave a like on the video, maybe even subscribe to the channel for more similar content. And yeah, I hope to see you in the next video. Yeah, I wish you all a good day.